There's been a sharp drop in the nation's unemployment rate. It fell from 9% to 8.6% last month, and that is the lowest level in 2.5 years. 120,000 new jobs were added. The economy has generated 100,000 or more jobs 5 months in a row. That is the first time that's happened since April of 2006. And here with a look at the new positive trends in the economy is Liz Ann Sonders. She's Chief Investment Strategist with Charles Schwab. Great to have you with us. Good morning.
Thanks for having me.
So you look at these numbers. I mean, jobs are improving. You have the retail sector improving. Great holiday sales figures so far. Car sales are improving. Even business activity is picking up. But everybody wants to know, is it here to stay, or is this a fooled me once again kind of economy?
I don't think it's a fooled me once kind of economy. I think it is a sign that we're lifting up off the pace of growth in the first half of the year, which had a lot of exogenous circumstances behind it. I don't necessarily think it means that it's the beginning of an off to the races type of track for the economy. I think we're going to stay in relatively low growth mode, but I think fears of recession, which had been prevalent even a month or two ago, I think have been put on the back burner for now.
Part of the reason the unemployment rate dropped to 8.6% is because some people gave up looking for work, or they dropped out of the labor force, so they weren't counted in the numbers. How important is that figure psychologically speaking to just say we've backed off from that 9% level where we were stuck for so many years?
I think the unemployment rate, even though it's a fairly lagging indicator and there's a lot that goes into it that needs digestion, much as you suggested, but I do think psychologically it is a big boost, particularly given how dramatic a drop it was. Yes, some of it was people who have opted out of the labor force, but not necessarily because they've given up hope finding a job. Many of them have left the labor force because they don't need to be in it anymore or are retired. So it's not only a negative story behind that component of the number.
Interesting point. And also an interesting point to raise here is that a lot of the numbers previously are looking better, right, according to the Labor Department. They came back and they revised all of these figures and said September and October actually added way more jobs than we initially thought.
You know, it's one of those economic numbers, much like gross domestic product, that is so highly subject to revision. I'm not quite sure why we obsess about it the day it comes out, because we know there are going to be so many revisions to those numbers. Of course, the good news being that the trend in the last several months has been significant upward revisions to the prior numbers. So we're looking at even more strength than we thought a couple of months ago.
What about the news for investors, people with pensions, retirement savings accounts? This week was one of the best on record for the Dow and the S&P 500. What's the outlook then for the rest of this year and then going into next year?
Look, I think, unfortunately, this kind of volatility we've been seeing, where we've had these massive moves in both directions in a fairly short period of time, we're probably still at the mercy of some of the factors driving that. So I think volatility is here to stay. But my view has been, in this kind of range-bound market, it has an upward bias to it. And what I think we've seen with some of these big rallies is a lot of investors are underinvested. They don't have exposure, and they're scrambling when they see these stronger days. And I think that's something we're likely to see continue. The expectations bar is so low right now that the ability to hurdle that bar is even better when you've got the bar so low on the ground. And I think that's been behind some of these big rallies in the market, which is good news for investors. Good news for investors. So is that something that you would say for investors who aren't necessarily in the market, think about getting in at this point? Well, if there's one thing you can do in highly volatile markets is use it to your advantage, knowing that there are going to be swings in either direction. If you are underexposed and need more exposure to the equity market to beat inflation, then take advantage of what we know will be some of the bigger down periods in order to dollar cost average, as they call it, to get back in. So I think it's never a good idea to just try to pick the day and throw it all in or pull it all out. Those are not investment strategies. That's gambling at a moment in time, and investing should be a process over time. Liz Ann Sonders, Charles Schwab, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Have a great weekend. Happy holidays. Thank you.